Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Trekyards. I'm Captain Foley.
I am Connor Cummings. We have a great guest joining us today who took long enough to be on the show. Don't we, Stuart?
We do indeed, because today isn't just another Trekyards episode, but it's a Trekyards Originals, where we take a look at a fan-designed ship and have the designer join us to tell us all about it. And we have one of our biggest supporters joining us today. Please welcome Mr. Lonnie McAfee to the show, everyone.
Gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be here.
So, Lonnie, you were kind enough to reach out to us and sponsor this show by commissioning this Trekyards Original. And again, about time, because you have so many great designs. But for this one, which was the one that you picked? This first one, I'm hinting here. Tell us about this ship we're looking at today, Lonnie.
So today we're going to be looking at one of my original designs. It's the Melbourne class, named so in honor of the ill-fated USS Melbourne, which we lost in the Battle of Wolf 359 in 2367.
That's right, and we had the opportunity to sit down with Lonnie and took a look at the design and helped him flesh it out a bit, provide a story, a history, and made it fit into the large tapestry of Star Trek canon and history. So without any further ado, we present you with the Melbourne class. Now, she has 32 decks, is 705 meters long, 126 meters high, and 299 meters wide.
Construction of the Melbourne began in 2369, 2 years after its predecessor was lost at Wolf 359. The registry of this new construction was NCC 78043. Early concepts of this design, drawn up years before the Borg threat, had listed as a relief and colony support ship with massive internal construction facilities to fabricate housing and basic infrastructure on a new planet. Then, after the Borg invasion, the design was revamped as a heavy battlecruiser / long-range explorer, but that was soon changed with her becoming a dedicated spacecraft carrier. One of the major contributors to this ship's design was the then Commander Benjamin Sisko, who was knee-deep in the USS Defiant design at the point, but he played a crucial role in developing the ship's main tactical and saucer warp-flight capabilities.
Due to the carrier-style nature of the vessel and its unique role within the fleet, it was capable of routine saucer separation operations. As just mentioned, the saucer section was also warp capable. When operating in the separated or tactical operations configuration, the primary saucer section was referred to as the tactical section, and the secondary hull was called the carrier section. The reasoning behind this design was to establish a large, fast space frame which would be able to lead the charge and coordinate attacks against a substantial Borg threat, while various fighters and runabout squadrons would be deployed from the carrier section to harass multiple targets and keep the focus away from the main capital ships in the fleet. They'd be presenting a swarm of moderately threatening targets, which would drain shields and divert fire away from those more powerful ships.
The ship's standard crew complement consists of around 596 personnel, which includes several Marine attachments and fighter pilot squadrons, and could be comfortably expanded to 1,200 or higher in a battle situation. Due to the sheer size and layout of the internal volume, as well as taking into account its original design philosophy of being a long-range colony ship, this ship had the largest evacuation limit of any ship in Starfleet history, sitting around 17,000 when compared to the Galaxy class's 15,000 evacuation number. This, of course, was dependent upon multiple factors and did not necessarily guarantee much comfort. The standard operating configuration had bunk-like accommodations for the majority of the crew, including the Marines, with the officers and pilots having more comfortable accommodations.
Original versions of this design included a dedicated dropship which could be used to shuttle colonists and equipment to a planet's surface in place of or in conjunction with transporters. Once the main focus of this design changed to a more aggressive military carrier, this dropship was converted into a marine boarding vessel and emergency transport. Squads of Marines would be loaded in, and once launched, the ship would be piloted to and magnetically attach itself to an enemy ship's hull. The Marines would then begin beaming aboard the enemy vessel in waves to seize control or facilitate rescue of Starfleet personnel, or whatever the mission called for at the time. The dropship, or boarding ship as it's now called, was converted to include powerful focused phaser emitters, as well as dedicated cutting blades, which could also slice into an enemy vessel if transports were not viable, for whatever reason.
One very notable feature of this design was the very wide neck and primary dorsal attachment. This was to accommodate pilot bunks, flight control, and fighter storage, as well as 4 independent fighter launch bays. Each of these bays had one fighter locked and loaded for launch at all times for quick deployment. Retrieval and reloading of these bays could be accomplished with single independent tractor beams, or by having a skilled pilot simply redock manually into the bay. Standard shuttle loadout of the Melbourne is 8 Type 18 shuttles, 8 Type 8 shuttles, and 8 Type 9 shuttles. When loaded as a fighter carrier, the main complement consisted of 2 squadrons of 14 Sparrowhawk fighters and were stored in large parking bays when not on active standby. The elite Maroon Squadron was stationed aboard the Melbourne and were considered the best of the best fighter pilots in the Federation. The ship also housed a complement of 14 Mark IV enhanced runabouts, which had added firepower but sacrificed higher warp speeds as a trade-off. Each section of the ship carried its own Argo-class shuttle and accompanying ground vehicle for planetary offenses should they be required, with an additional Argo-type ground vehicle parked inside the dropship cargo hold.
The primary hull housed a large shuttle bay facility, as well as some small repair facilities off to the sides that were used to repair fighters or runabouts if required. The main shuttle bay, located in the secondary hull, was a split-level design, but was still all connected as one large hangar area. Large factory spaces allowed not only for small ship repairs, but also had the ability to construct new fighters or runabouts should the need arise. It is these large multi-deck high bays and construction facilities that gave the ship so much room for evacuation procedures. The upper part of some of these bays were also used for shuttle or fighter storage and consisted of launch racks that could be lowered to allow for speedy delivery of fighters or shuttles in emergency situations. The vessel also housed a large contingent of work bees as well as Sphinx maintenance craft. These, along with the onboard fabrication facilities, could be quite useful in the repair of any other spacecraft requiring assistance. Generally, if there was a major battle with damaged ships, this ship would act as a mobile repair facility, while the fighter and runabout squadrons would defend against additional enemy hostilities until the damaged vessels could be repaired enough to depart the vicinity under their own power.
The ship had a total of 21 phaser strips, 2 quantum launchers, and 1 standard photon launcher. As mentioned earlier, the source section could detach and was warp capable. Upon clearing the secondary hull and getting within a safe distance, these small warp engines would activate. The initial jump to Warp 2 was extremely fast, but then due to these small experimental warp coils, the acceleration curve really slowed down, and reaching its top speed of Warp 5 took quite some time. The secondary warp coil that was located in this saucer was generally only on hot standby when in standard operation mode, and generally small amounts of power under normal operating conditions. However, when needed, it could be brought up to full power and supplement energy requirements as needed within only 10 minutes.
The carrier hull had newly designed warp nacelles that were inspired by the Romulan Warbird nacelle configuration. These were ultra-efficient and heavily shielded, and as such, were less susceptible to catastrophic damage. This new design was actually rushed through the testing and shakedown phases in an effort to deliver the ship before the end of the Dominion War. So some work and modifications continued after hostilities had subsided. The newer design sported fewer, smaller coils, but had 2 rows of coils per nacelle, allowing the secondary ones to act as a spare tire of sorts, should the primary coils become damaged. Maximum warp of these new engines was only 9.4 for 8 hours, with a standard cruising speed of warp 6. These secondary coils did not allow for as high a warp factor, however, being limited to a max speed of warp 7.8. And were just there as a redundancy in case of emergency or to be used in the repair of other vessels' warp nacelles should that need arise. Smaller, more focused Bussard collectors were also incorporated into this design to allow for additional shielding.
In the secondary hull, the warp core and primary plasma feeds were situated low in the hull underneath the primary shuttle hangar bay. A flight control room, laid out very much like a standard astrometrics lab, using holographic maps and support ship information, was also situated in the primary dorsal, and was used to coordinate flight operations between squadrons, and could even act as a complete fleet operations room in times of battle. In such instances, a fleet captain or admiral could oversee the entirety of a battle scenario in 3D and issue commands to all ships involved therein. Serving aboard the Melbourne was Starfleet Academy's primary fighter training officer, Captain Denise Kingswood, who left her post on Earth near the end of the Dominion War to head up Maroon Squadron aboard ship. Maroon Squadron, as mentioned earlier, was the Federation's most prestigious and most decorated elite fighter squadron, and served with distinction in many skirmishes with the Dominion and Breen fleets.
And 2 quick points there. Is Denise Kingswood English? Because it sounds like such an English name.
Well, it's actually it's a shout out to my mom. It's her middle name, and then she grew up in Kingswood, Kentucky. So
Nice.
just thought I'd throw her in there.
That's awesome. And you say Maroon Squad. It's like, screw Red Squad.
Right,
I
right.
thought they were
It's
so
like,
big.
You know, Monster Maroons, whatever.
Yeah.
No, the red shirts are there to be killed. Once they went to maroon, they got better.
Right, right.
And the turquoise bland ones are in between. Bland Squad, that it updates to.
Right. Those are the ones that's called washout row. They don't they don't get too far after they hit the turquoise squad.
Mm-hmm.
Also included in this design was a dedicated mine layer located in the tactical section of the ship. This was a holdover from the initial plans to make this a colony ship, as it was originally intended to be very useful at deploying communication satellites in orbit over any planet slated for colonization. This system is now set up to deploy a variety of satellite types, as well as various styles of mines, including photonic, quantum, and nuclear, or even small phaser platforms which could work independently, targeting energy power signatures, or could also be remotely operated from the ship.
Another ship of this class was launched before its completion as well to provide support for the badly fatigued Federation fleet. The USS Boston saw some service at the very end of the war and received some minor damage while providing assistance in evacuation to a few ships of the fleet during the final offensive of the war. Shortly thereafter, she was taken into dry dock and completed, hopefully to never be needed in another hostile skirmish again. Wishful thinking, I'm sure.
Yeah. So now it's the time of the show where we get to talk to you, Lonnie, ask you a few questions on your design, how you came about doing this design, why you wanted to do this design, and get your feedback. So, Samuel, I'll let you ask the first question. How's that?
So, Lonnie, hopefully people know you from the Trekyards Facebook page, posting a lot of great stuff and a lot of great comments. What was in particular that made you pick this ship? And I sort of know the answer, but why did you pick this ship of your existing lineup of ships when you had this episode commissioned?
That's a good question. I had this design in mind for a while. It was just a general concept that I had been playing with, and I had drawn it maybe 3 weeks before I found out that my lovely girlfriend and my family had set this up for me as a gift, and very nice of them. But I wanted to do something specifically for this episode. Like I didn't want to use an existing design, and I also wanted to have something that was fully fleshed out, like something that wasn't starting from kind of prior lack of knowledge, just kind of using all the skills I have at the moment to really make the ship I've always wanted to see.
So you heard that right, guys. He had to build a whole new ship design just for this episode because he's that crazy.
Right.
Amazing. He has like 8 other ones, and he picked a brand new one they had to invent. Love it.
Gotta be crazy. And also, there's not really a such thing as a Federation carrier. I mean, you have the the Midway class from Starfleet Command, and then you have like the giant one. I forget, you guys did an episode
For
with stuff.
Invasion, yeah.
Right.
Typhon.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But those are kind of super carriers. This is more of a, let's deploy some stuff out there. We don't need to worry about overwhelming the fleet,
Well, it's a carrier ship hybrid, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of like a pocket carrier, I guess.
Pocket carrier. Like Pokemon.
Right.
So what made you pick the name Melbourne? Like, what made you hone in on that one in particular?
Well, I'd say that kind of similar to, well, not in the same exact sense, but similar to how like the Midway, describes just this major battle of kind of the defining conflict of an era. I really wanted to just convey like this is this generation's kind of not necessarily flagship, but just kind of the teeth of the fleet. Like this is what they're going to send to really knock down a threat, and it's kind of payback for Wolf 359. And who better to really deliver that than, at least in part, than Benjamin Sisko,
So it should have been called the USS Wolf NCC 359XX.
I could see that appearing on art somewhere. Yeah.
That's the refit.
Oh,
Right.
yes.
The 359 class. It's just all quad torpedo launchers. Just that's just what it is.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And just extra warp cores for delivering just devastation. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. When I saw this design, I was quite taken with it. It's a really nice. It's very familiar, obviously, but it's got some really nice curves, and you went for a very organic look, and those warp engines as well. Interesting choice. You know, I love how in the script we said, you know, went for a new top engine, a new based on an existing. Although not that we ever got those.
Right.
We didn't get dissect that engine. But why pick? I mean, did you? Because we talked with you about developing the backstory about a lot of this stuff. Talk to me about the warp engines. Was that an original concept to say, oh, I love the Romulan engines, I want to make a Federation version? I mean, what was the thought behind making that, or did you post retcon that back into your own thought process?
It was kind of a retcon. It really has mostly to do with the original drawing, and they didn't look exactly like that in the drawing, but I kind of just wanted to have a little bit of a militant callback to that design where, like, all right, the Enterprise D or, you know, Galaxy class, the nacelles are very open, very vulnerable in a sense. I mean, when you see what is it? It's not Time Zero. The one with Kelsey Grammer, the one with Bozeman.
Cause and effect.
Cause and effect, exactly. When you see it hit the nacelle like that, okay, yeah, there should have been some devastating damage, but that shouldn't have destroyed the ship. You know, like you should be able to survive a nacelle strike.
Yeah.
And same with the Odyssey. It's like, all right, you had that giant impact with the primary dorsal, but then you have a giant chunk that just flies off and hits the nacelle, and I'm pretty sure that's what ultimately destroyed the ship. You know, and there's, I mean, all the side cannon, or well, not really side cannon, but fan beta cannon, I guess, where, you know, after the destruction of the Enterprise D, they go back and they're like, oh, this might not be the best design, you know, like as far as the warp systems, like just too much overcomplicated plumbing, like Scotty would want to say. So it just kind of brings it to the bare bones. And in a sense, this is a very traditional Federation design. It's got, instead of the nacelles, for example, like the Excelsior class, they're connecting to this hub, or with Galaxy and Ambassador class, they're kind of flaring out from the sides or from the back. They're just really just a Y-shaped intermix chamber, just like the 1701. It's just really kind of taking that same tried and tested technology to the 24th century.
Now, we know you do a lot of fantastic designs. Can you just walk us through kind of your process on doing a design? Where do you start? What's your vision? Like, how long does it take to complete something like this?
Tom, you modelled it as well. I mean, it's 100% Lonnie.
Everything starts on graph paper. So I don't know if I have any Federation stuff in here, but I just will draw half a ship and then double it up in Photoshop, remove the lines, and then I'll do orthographic, shots from there. Sometimes I'll do other views by hand, but usually I just start from a ventral view.
Cool.
And then from there, take it into Blender, start working on a rough model. After I get just the basic shape, I'll start to work out the decals and just placement, things like that.
Now, do you ever find it difficult to go from a ventral view to other views? Because I know I've drawn some ships from the top, and I simply love them, and then I try to translate them into different, and I'm like, this isn't working. I just can't think that way.
Sometimes it is a little difficult, and sometimes I run into a wall as far as wanting to stay too true to the original drawing. Like I kind of get locked into that, like, oh, I have to actually flesh out this thing that I drew on paper, or else I'm cheating somehow, But really, it's whatever serves the design. So when you go from one view to another, you really do have to almost take twice as much time on that second view to make sure that it's not only true to the first view, but visually appealing in itself,
Mm-hmm.
And was there? I know you said obviously that. Did you know this ship would be in the era you pitched it? I mean, are we tempted to go beyond DS9 and say this is 10 years past, you can do whatever you want? I mean, because some of the shapes are very organic. Because we know that obviously later ships, to some extent, go to a more pointy, slightly more rigid design. Obviously, eventually off into the J, they go the opposite. So yours is quite organic. Did you always know it'd be this exact, timeline, or did you ever think, no, I'll push it a bit further and allow me to have that more creativity when it comes to angles and such?
I think just early on it was meant to be kind of immediately either post Voyager or like just pre-Sovereign. I think it was kind of more getting into the Sovereign era originally, but I think you, Samuel, you kind of did point out that if it was gonna be something designed in '69, then it would be a little bit before that. The triangular life pods and the reinforced darker sections, and but then on the left and right of the shuttle bay, there are those armored sections. So I tried to kind of call back to the Sovereign design. I tried to, and just a couple little cues from like the Nova class. I threw a few little where the I don't even know where you call that, between the aft impulse, the secondary hull impulse engine and the torpedo launcher, where the I guess the umbilical connectors are. I used a lot of the decals I had used for a previous Nova class design just to kind of hark back to that.
We love the little bits of thought. They can really make a design.
Yeah, and I think it's cool too to see a carrier in Star Trek. We've never really seen. Well, we've never seen one on film anyway, canon. But like you said, they are in Starfleet Command. They are in Starfleet Battles and a bunch of other ones. And I think it makes sense for any organization to have this kind of thing. So I love that you're bringing this in and kind of expanding to that and giving us a carrier, because I've always wanted a carrier in Star Trek. So I think that's awesome.
Thank you. And yeah, I think there's this mentality that it doesn't necessarily fit the philosophy or fit just canon, but I don't see that at all, really. I mean, and especially you have Wesley in the Starburst, whatever it's called, Corvalian Starburst or whatever. So
with the not Tom Paris.
Exactly. Why didn't they just call? Oh, and go ahead.
As a rights issue, but I think one of the things that we talked about in the design, when we talked about this, was that fighters are completely ineffective in the Star Trek world. I mean, even in the Dominion war battles, I mean, a Peregrine, okay, they might do some hull damage, but they're all getting annihilated. I mean, none of them are they're suicide ships. They are. So I think when we talked about it, worked out, does your ship suit having runabouts? Because a runabout is a self-sustained vehicle. It's not a shuttlecraft, it's a spacecraft. Right. And the fact is God knows how many times in DS9 they send them out to do full missions. So we know that Starfleet thinks they're capable. So rather than it being a fighter carrier in the truest sense, it's using the smallest, most capable ships as a squadron. And so I think we've taken it one level above it's not a fighter carrier, it's a auxiliary craft carrier, but every ship is capable. Right. They're not ships that can just be knocked out. We've seen them take out bug ships with 2 sustained phaser blasts. Each ship is capable. So as we said, you imagine a fleet of them, and it's like, that's a pretty hefty bit of firepower. Okay, yes, most won't survive, but if you give them good pilots, good targeting people, like you said, give runabouts pilots of Peregrines, thinking in those enhanced maneuver ways, may enhance the impulse engine, just make them more maneuverable. Boom, you've got very capable fleet.
I do love the fact that you tied Top Gun into it. The Top Gun pilots, the best of the best are there. They are coming out with a Top Gun 2, so hopefully they use your carrier in that movie, because it is a sequel.
It would fit in like a glove.
Get Maverick and Goose's.
Spoilers, man.
Near Miramar Air Base, that would be cool to see starship just hovering. That
is cool. That is cool.
Yeah. Actually,
Top Gun's my favorite movie, guys. Just so you know.
Negative Ghost Rider, the pattern is full. But let me see. I was gonna bring up a couple things actually, because I don't know for sure, but you know how the runabouts are modular. So you have the cockpit section and cargo and then living section. I was wondering if you can use those forward sections just as an autonomous, thruster powered just kind of down to a planet and back vehicle.
I don't know.
I'm sure you could reroute power and such, but it probably wouldn't be advised.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
just as a backup, I was thinking if they carried like just the parts of runabouts, like that would be they'd be able to have like 50 of them, really.
Well, yeah,
But
it
it's
said that it has fabrication facilities there to actually build runabouts and fighters on the spot if they need to. So I would imagine so, yeah. So is there anything else moving forward that you'd like to do to this ship? Maybe make a refit version or anything you wish you had done differently?
Yeah, I would really want to do a Boston variant, like just have something pretty significantly not wildly different, but almost like the Galaxy versus the Venture, where it's just a different take on the same design. I'd also want to flesh out the interior a little more, like just I did do like a hangar deck, like a through hangar deck, but I'd want to do all the lift mechanisms and like kind of the quarters branching off, have like the control tower. But
That's cool.
Cool. And I guess lastly, what was it like working with Team Trekyards to help flesh out this design, and what was it like I say, in person and live?
oh, it's been a blast, you guys. I mean, I've always felt like you had good chemistry and I enjoyed your personalities, but speaking with you in person, it's been very enjoyable. And then a couple of stand-up guys. So
Aw, thanks, man. That's awesome.
Sure.
Anyway, guys, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you, Lonnie, very much for joining us and for giving us this fantastic design. Hopefully there's more to come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
it's been my pleasure.
He's not saying anything. He's not even throwing us a bone here. There might be
Want
more
more ships,
designs
Lonnie?
from Lonnie.
Come on, Nolly. All right.
There might be. It's kind of a given,
Tell you what,
right?
comments below if you love this ship so much. Tell us we want Lonnie back,
Yes.
and then he has to come back.
Yeah, so please comment below what you thought of the ship, what if you want to see more from Lonnie, and just overall what you thought of the episode and the ship. And don't forget to hit that like button as well as subscribe and the notify button so you get notified every time we upload, which we do a lot of.
And of course, you can support us on Patreon or a one-time donation at trekyards.com. And Lonnie, I'll let you say the goodbye bit, so say some sort of outro.
Thanks for trekking with Trekyards and stuff.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Enjoy.